Good evening. I would like to call to order the Monday, December 19th meeting of the Wilson School Board. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mrs. Casper?
Here.
Dr. Kennedy? Here. Mr. Martin? Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mrs. Cocker?
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
Please stand for the posting of the colors.
Colors. Halt. Left. Face. Ma'am, permission to post colors. Post. Colors. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. Green cross colors. Arch. Center. Face. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Okay, this evening we have communications for recognition of the students who designed the Wilson holiday cards. Dr. Trickett?
Thank you, President Cocker. Tonight I have the privilege of presenting 5 students with some very nice artwork and holiday greetings. A little history behind this is every year for the recent history that I can remember. We've asked different schools and different students to volunteer to create holiday cards, as well as the greetings that go inside of them. So this year, the 5 students on the board agenda, Maria, Riley, Julia, Isabel, and Justina, all had a part in either creating the actual card artwork itself, here on the left, or the actual greeting message on the right. So this year, again, amazing artwork and great, wonderful pieces of writing. So what I'd like to do is call all 5 of you up here. And if you would, you can shake the hands, and the board members can thank you. And as you come around to President Cucker and I, we will hand you your plaque to take with you. So thank you so much for participating and for all you do here at Wilson, and I wish you happy holidays. I don't know all their names.
Okay, congratulations to the artists and writers. I'm always impressed with the holiday cards, and it's nice to see different levels of our schools being represented each year. So obviously, there's a difference in art ability between our elementary students creating the cards and our high school. Just really impressed all around. Next, we have Mr. Moravich, and he has a special solicitor announcement tonight. As it's the first meeting in December, we have a special tradition. It may seem a little odd, but I swear it's a tradition. It's what it dates any of us, predates any of us.
There's
so.
definitely a picture in, I think, the late 80s, early 90s in the Reading Eagle of the pig being crushed. So we know it goes back at least that far. It goes back as far as I've been here. So this is the Peppermint Pig. It's good feelings about the end of the year and the holiday season. It goes into this bag and then gets hit with a hammer. So I'm not sure what part of that is good or bad, and I'll read my little Wilson introduction for it. In early Decembers long since past, while the quaint villages of Spring, Lower Heidelberg, Sinking Spring, and West Lawn slept quietly through a chilled and moonlit evening, legend suggests a bit of holiday magic was in the making. The first dusting of winter snow gathered in the doorways of candy shops dotting Berks County. Behind the heavy wooden doors of those shops, tireless candy makers labored into the night over bubbling candy pots, continuing the holiday tradition known as the Peppermint Pig. While other times of year might be known for the Wilson Bulldog, this was the season of the Peppermint Pig, which was cast of hard candy similar in fashion to a candy cane and festive pink in color. While the pig is honored in holiday tradition as a symbol of good health, happiness, and prosperity, these special peppermint pigs, unique to Berks County, came to represent much more. While red-cheeked children laughed and rode on wooden sleds over fresh snow, and while church bells rang out, families gathered for their holiday dinner. After the dinner, the pig was passed with each person in turn giving the pouch, holding the pig, a firm tap, and remembering the matters of disappointment from years past. However, with the sharing of the delicious broken pieces of peppermint, each person would instead recall a warm memory and share their hopes for prosperity in the coming new year. Wishing good health, happiness, and prosperity to the entire Wilson community.
Do we have to share the memory?
I think you better hit it with the big hammer.
We need the big.
I'll get it started. So everybody takes a little whack, remembering the disappointments of the year
Of the year past,
And then you
yes.
take a little piece for good luck for the following year.
Yeah, and if you hit it real hard, that might be inside of how the year past worked out, but.
It's good. It's just peppermint. It's just like a candy cane. There aren't supposed to be any injuries involved, yeah.
So many fond memories this year, it's hard to share just one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maravich, for your yearly, yeah,
And
presentation.
if you knock out a filling, I'm not responsible.
Yeah, it was pretty sticky.
Suck on it. I don't think you can chew it.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitch. Hopefully that brings everyone on the board good luck for the following year. Next, we have a presentation on the fiscal year by Chris Turtel from Herbine and Company.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Turtel. I'm a partner with Herbine and Company. Going to spend a couple of minutes just going over the June 30, 2022 audit for the Wilson School District. We do our audit here at the school district under 3 auditing standards: our generally accepted auditing standards, which is our financial audit. Government auditing standards is what looks at the internal controls over financial reporting, think cash disbursements, payroll, journal entries, and also uniform guidance, which is the compliance audit of your federal program. We issue 2 opinions. The first is reasonable assurance that the financial statements are in compliance with the accounting regulations. And the second is on the compliance with the federal program that we tested this year. Happy to report unmodified, clean audit opinions. Your team does a great job. It's been a lot the last couple of years, a lot of different federal funds, new programs. So it's a shout out not just to your financial staff, but also your program staff for no findings. We tested the Education Stabilization Fund this year. So that encompasses the ESSER funds as well as any GEAR money that was still in the process of being spent. So no findings in internal control over compliance or over reporting. A couple of items on the results for the year. So the general fund did show a surplus of about $2.5 million, mostly from strong local revenues. We saw this in many of our districts between earned income tax coming in strong, business privilege tax also being strong, and real estate transfer tax, if you can kind of remember back, houses flying off the market pretty quickly here in 2022. Leaving a total general fund balance of about $29.7 million. Of that $29 million, the board has committed $19 million for future PSERS increases, retirement rate increases. We're still seeing those rate increases going through. And about $2.5 million for enrollment expansion. That was a new bucket that you created this year. Leaving an unassigned fund balance, or your actual reserve, of about $6.7 million, or about 5.3% of next year's budgeted expenditures. And that metric is used because you have a fund balance policy that states you should have no less than 3% in that reserve, and you're at 5.32. So in a strong financial position. We do have 2 enterprise funds here, childcare and food service, both of which had good fiscal years in 2022 also. Contributing to that, back to in-person learning for full fiscal years. But also we had a lot of federal funds that rolled through. We have federal funds with free and reduced breakfast, so we had free breakfast and free lunch for everybody in 2022. And we also had some ARP money that came in to support childcare from lost revenues that happened during that COVID time period. So those extra funds really helped contribute to good fiscal years for both of those funds this year. No difficulties performing the audit. Your team did a great job getting us the information that we needed timely. Challenging year. We had a new standard, new accounting ease that I'm not going to go into because from your standpoint, the budgeting is still the budgeting, so. But new accounting ease, we had some new lease standards this year. Put your team under a lot of stress, but they did a nice job of working through. Minimal accounting adjustments, and overall, no other reportable matters from me. I know it's a lot of information in a short period of time, and I don't have any treats like Mr. Maravich does, but
Yeah, sorry, that was hard to follow up.
know.
But the good news is sweet, so,
it is good news.
yeah. Are there any questions from the board? Dr. Trickett?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank Chris for his report and continued commitment and work with our school district, and especially to Ms. Schlossman back here, our CFO, Joanne, Jess, and our entire finance team. They work diligently to ensure that all of the things that Chris and Herbine review are done to the standard expected, but especially last year, with monies coming in from different sources and just managing all of that and keeping track of it. Just very much appreciate her leadership and the work she does for Wilson and our community.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shortell.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. We have no public participation on agenda items this evening. The board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel issues. 2.1, looking for approval of the minutes of the school board meeting held on December 5th, 2022. Looking for motion for 2.1.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider, second.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report, Mr. McCray.
Yes, request approval of the treasurer's report, the investment report, general and capital funds disbursements, and financial reports as presented in the agenda tonight.
Thank you. We have a motion for 3.1. Do we have a second?
Negrini, second.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Payment of bills, Mr. Negrini.
Motion to approve the payment of bills from the following: the general fund in the amount of $1,576,292.23, from capital reserve in the amount of $108.17, from the 2019A construction fund, $1,096.70, and from the 2021C construction fund, $28.62 as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 4.1. Do we have a second?
McCray?
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Financial reports, Mr. Negrini.
Motion to approve the financial reports from November 2022 from the cafeteria and childcare funds, as well as the Southern, West, and high school activity accounts as attached.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. We have a motion for 5.1. Do we have a second?
McCray?
Mr. McCray, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Abstain.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
7 yes, 1 abstain.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Trickett.
Yeah, tonight I present the superintendent's report, including the personnel and program recommendations. Just want to point out, we have 4 new substitutes. It seems to be a nice trend we have here, people wanting to come back and serve in this capacity. Included in that is a former student and a former professional educator. So very glad to see both of them on this list.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Looking for a motion to approve superintendent's report 6.1 through 6.9 as presented. Mr. Hart, thank you. Do we have a second?
Sure.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes?
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
7.1, request approval of the following field trips. The high school competition cheer team traveling to Orlando, Florida on February 8th through 13th of 2023. Cost to the school district will be 3 substitute teachers for 3 days. The students will be chaperoned by Tanya Cosgrove, Lindsay Neems.
Nimchuk.
What is it?
Nimchuk.
Nimchuk, thank you, Mr. McCray, and Larissa Whitmire, 3 days out of school for students. Looking for a motion for 7.1.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second. Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under consent items, request to accept with gratitude the donations from Darian Hawkins, 12 complete Thanksgiving dinners for families in the Wilson School District. From Van Reed Athletic Association, gift cards to Redner's Market for families needing assistance in the Wilson School District. Gift cards were distributed to each district building to be used at the discretion of the building principal. From Redner's Market, gift cards for families needing assistance in the Wilson School District. Gift cards were distributed to each district building to be used at the discretion of the building principal. 8.2, request approval to approve the appointment of our designated representatives to the PA School Board Association for 2023 as follows. PSBA Representative Steph Cocker, Legislative Chairperson Mr. Schneider, Employee Relations Contact Mr. Hart. 8.3, request to approve the appointment of Wilson School District's Chief Financial Officer Christine Schlasman and Controller Joanne Beard as delegate and alternate delegate respectively to serve on the Berks Tax Collection Committee Executive Committee. 8.4, request approval of the appointment of Guadalupe Casper as our district representative to the Joint Operating Committee of Berks Career and Technology Center for 2023. 8.5, request approval of the appointment of Dr. Amy Kennedy as our district representative to the Berks County Intermediate Unit for 2023. And 8.6, request approval of representatives to the Spring Township Parks and Recreation Board for 2023, Keith A. Stam and William Herbine. Looking for a motion to approve consent items 8.1 through 8.6 as presented. Mr. Negrini, thank you. And a second, Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Greeny.
I just want to point out that this is, I believe, either the second or third year that Mr. Hawkins has donated Thanksgiving dinners to families in need in our community, as well as several other local school districts. And I think it's wonderful to see individuals giving back to the community, to helping out others during the holiday season. So I think it deserves extra recognition for his efforts. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Because they are consent items, all we need is to see who's in favor. So in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Human Resources, request authorization for the superintendent to make employment commitments to qualified applicants for the purpose of filling vacancies that occur after the December 19th, 2022 board meeting, with action to be ratified by the Board of Education at the next official meeting. 9.2, request approval of Amanda Ruth, Special Education Supervisor, Act 93, $100,240, effective January 3rd, 2023. And 9.3, request approval of the Student Custodian Assistant job description and the School Bus Student Aid job description as attached. Looking for a motion for Human Resources items 9.1 through 9.3 as presented.
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Dr. Trickett?
Thank you. Starting with 9.2, Amanda Ruth is with us tonight. She'll be joining in her new role here. However, she's a longtime Wilson employee, a major contributor to our team, and we're just looking forward to working with you in this new capacity formally, as I know you've been assuming some of these leadership responsibilities already. So welcome. Secondly, to 9.3, I just want to commend our team thinking outside the box, looking at these positions, our custodian assistant. It's an area that we've been struggling with, right? It's an area that we struggle to attract and retain high-quality personnel in. So our team got together, and our high school team, Dr. Weber, advocated for the creation of some positions that would actually be offered to our upper-level high school students, up age-wise in our building. So this, as well as the school bus student aid, would be positions that our current students could fill outside of the school day. So it really helps multiple different areas. One, obviously, it gets the needs met here in our school district, but also provides our students with the opportunity for employment right here on our campus. So to the students that are watching, parents that are watching, who would like your students to be working, please consider these positions as they get posted later in the week. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trickett. Any other discussion for human resources? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Student Services, 10.1, request approval of a memorandum of understanding with the Spring Township Police Department for the assignment of a school resource officer to the Wilson School District for a term beginning on January 1st, 2023, and ending on June 30th, 2024, to be shared 50/50 with Spring Township at an approximate cost of $40,000 per year to the district. 10.2, request permission to ratify a contract with Conrad Weiser Decision School for 2 special education students for the 2022-23 school year at a cost of $227.44 per student per day, pending solicitor review and approval. 10.3, request approval of a memorandum of understanding with County of Berks Children and Youth Services for foster care transportation, pending solicitor review and approval. 10.4, request permission to approve the adoption of a settlement agreement and release to establish an education fund to be held and managed by the district in the amount of $17,000 for legitimate educational expenses to settle and comprise all claims raised by the parents of a high school student, and to authorize the board president and secretary to execute the agreement on behalf of the district. 10.5, request approval for a service agreement with Day Spring Homes LLC to provide community participation support for a student currently enrolled in the district's special education program at a rate of $140 per day through the end of the extended school year term in 2023. 10.6, request approval of the linkage letter between RHA Health Services, formerly known as Salisbury Behavior Health, and the Wilson School District for the 2023 through 2025 school years, pending solicitor review and approval. Looking for a motion to approve student service items 10.1 through 10.6 as presented.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second? Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Technology, 11.1, request permission to sell outdated equipment to Upcycle USA LLC, final sale price contingent on evaluation of equipment. Looking for a motion for 11.1.
McCray.
Mr. McCray, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Finance, 12.1, request permission to receive the financial and compliance audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. 12.2, request approval of the renewal subscription agreement for frontline budget management, comparative and analytics, and financial planning analytics software powered by Forecast 5 for 3 years at a cost of $21,644.46 for 2023, $22,834.92 for 2024, and $24,090.83 for 2025. 12.3, request permission to submit 2 delinquent accounts to the Berks County Tax Claim Bureau, 2 Lower Heidelberg June 2022 interim bills for the 2021 tax year. 12.4, request approval of the budget transfers dated November 17th, 2022 through December 14th, 2022 as attached. Looking for a motion to approve finance items 12.1 through 12.4 as presented.
So moved, Negrini.
Mr. Negrini, thank you. Do we have a second?
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Curriculum and Staff Development, 13.1, request the approval of the student internship affiliation agreement with the Lancaster Bible College and the Wilson School District commencing December 2022 and terminating December 2023. Looking for a motion for 13.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Casper.
Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under Transportation, request approval of a service agreement with Bus Patrol to provide equipment, service, monitoring, and support for stop arm enforcement technology to be utilized on all eligible district vehicles as attached at a direct cost of $0 to the district. Looking for a motion for 14.1.
So moved. Case.
Mr. Case, thank you. Second, Dr. Kennedy. Any discussion? Mr. Negrini?
Just briefly, we did have some discussion on this previously. The goal of this partnership is to make our students safer as they get on and get off buses, as there have been a number of complaints or issues of individuals passing school buses with the extended red light and stop arm activated. It is oftentimes hard to identify those offenders when that occurs without the proper technology. So hopefully, with this approval this evening, that we put our community on notice that this should not be occurring, and that ultimately that this will be a way of a deterrent for individuals that ultimately do commit these offenses, as this will automatically be sent to local law enforcement and district justice offices. Can be obviously, at a minimum, a very costly decision, but certainly, as we've seen, I think as recently down in Allentown a couple of months ago, it can result in a fatality. So we just want to be mindful of that, and hopefully this is some added incentive for individuals to comply with the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Maybe perhaps we could have Mr. Williams come up just to kind of give the community a background on the program, or how it is conveniently $0 to the district, but has a huge benefit.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder there. Sorry about that.
Obviously, the goal of Bus Patrol and rolling that out on our 59 vehicles is the safety of our students. That's the ultimate goal. When you look at it during Operation Safe Stop, which happens traditionally in October, there were over 250 stop arm violations in one day across the state of Pennsylvania. Here, we average between 5 and 10 a week that we're reporting to spring, Lower Heidelberg, Wyomissing, or Sinking Spring. So, you think about that, 5 or 10 a week, not staggering, but the outcome could be very critical, and it could result in a fatality, and even one of those we don't want. So Bus Patrol actually has developed this program, this technology. They outfit every vehicle with 4 cameras. They call them stop arm cameras. They actually just go on the side of the bus near the stop sign that goes out, and it takes 4 different views of each car, and it's able to go 8 lanes wide. So it automatically sends that data to a data warehouse in Allentown, where they have specialists who sit and review that data. Once it's reviewed that they have the right information, that it did occur, they then forward that to the local police department. We did have a meeting a few weeks ago with the 4 local police departments here, and all 4 seem very on board. We are waiting. Dr. Huffert has been working with them, and we're waiting to get their signed agreements back. Bus Patrol would like to start implementation of this already. If we get board approval tonight, they want to start the process. If for some reason one or multiple of the 4 police departments say that they're not going to participate, we're not locked into it. Even though there is a contract, the contract is null and void, because without all 4 departments participating, the system wouldn't work well. We don't think at this point that there's going to be any objections. It looks very favorable. So, this is just 100% about safety. Yes, there is a $300 fine that the owner of the vehicle gets, okay? 250 of that says it goes to the school district to defray the costs of the technology, which is put on our buses at no cost to us. 25 of the $300 goes to local police, and $25 goes to a safety fund. So, okay, it's $300, but that's not why we're doing this. It's 100% safety. Mr. Case, I know you lived it one morning, and the fear and trepidation that you went through, nobody should have to go through. So, the couple school districts in our surrounding area, I know Norristown, I just read an article, goes live January 3rd, but we have either engaged or already have installed on their buses, Daniel Boone, Kutztown, Rose Tree Media, Quakertown, Methacton, Northwestern, Salisbury, Wilson area. So there's a lot of districts, not only in PA, but nationwide. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under extracurricular, 15.1, request approval to purchase second-hand instruments from Cadet Arts and Entertainment, Inc. Looking for a motion for 15.1.
So moved. Case?
Mr. Case, thank you. Do we have a second? Casper. Mrs. Casper, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. From an extracurricular standpoint, the instruments that, while they're secondhand, they're in far better shape than our current instruments that we have for our high school band. The instruments that we currently have all sorts of dents, and it is just really bad shape. I think the information we received from Mr. Fairchild. Yes, Mr. Fairchild, from Mr. Bonilla, kind of transferred over to us. From Mr. Fairchild was that, they've soldered all of the parts that they can possibly solder, and the instruments are basically ready to fall apart. So, although, again, like I said, these are secondhand, they're a step up from what the students are currently using. So that's my background for everyone. So having any other discussion about Mr. Greeny? Yes.
Well, some of the instruments to be replaced, I think, are in the age of anywhere between 15 and 20 years. The second-hand purchase is about a 50% savings, and they're on average about a year to 18 months old, the instruments that are being purchased, and they're being purchased through this particular vendor that ultimately takes good care of providing to some high-end drum corps that ultimately replace or has the ability to replace all of their instruments year after year. So this is an excellent opportunity for school districts and others to find some savings and some equipment that should last a very long time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Negrini. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to thank our marching band director and our former marching band director for keeping these instruments alive for the last 20 years. They have done a lot of repairs. They drive different sized balls through the brass instruments, and you can do that several times, and then just the metal weakens, and then you can literally blow a hole through the metal. So we got a whole lesson in that during the facilities committee. We learned a lot, but you know, and some of these instruments are, I believe, even as new as 6 months old from the cadet and what was it, the bugle and cadet corps. So it's yeah. Anyway, so that's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Case. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
Under policies, we have a final reading and adoption of a new and/or revised policies attached. Number 615, payroll deductions. Looking for a motion to approve 16.1.
Schneider, so moved.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Do we have a second?
Negrini,
Mr.
second.
Negrini, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no.
And just as a side note, 16.2, we have a second reading of policy 611 for purchases budgeted. Our enrollment report, as of December 15th, 2022, is 6,416, which is a decrease of 6 from the previous report in November. And on to committee reports. BCTC and Student Services, Mrs. Casper.
Thank you, President Cocker. BCTC, we met on December 15th virtually. That was that snow day, so we had to pivot to a virtual meeting, even though it was the last meeting of the year. And we usually get a really nice holiday dinner and a little gift from our horticulture program, so that's still pending. Not much to report. BCTC will be listing the new student-built home with our very own former Wilson School Board President, Matt Wolf. I also wanted to acknowledge all of the student awards. Wilson had one winner in the regional FFA Future Farmers of America competitions, career and development event. Rogan Hartman placed 4th in the nursery and landscape category. Rogan is enrolled in the BCTC's horticulture program. Avery Smith placed 2nd in the corsage category at the Penn College dual enrollment field day event. As far as students receiving honors in this last grading period, Johan Wildermuth for auto collision and repair technology, Reed Deal for cabinetry and wood technology, William Arnholt for computer systems, networking, and security, Edward Lawrence for HVAC, Shailyn Snyder for business management and entrepreneurship, Amanda Pennington for culinary arts, Kevin Vasquez Mancia for drafting, design, and technology, Anastasia Pendos for health occupations, and Trevor Bilodeau for mechatronics, engineering, and technology. We were actually presented with a project, a group of BCTC students in the computerized machining and technology program participated in a project called HUNCH, stands for High School Students United with NASA to create hardware. And the students were tasked with manufacturing a piece of a handrail to be used in the International Space Station. BCTC was one of 4 schools in Pennsylvania to participate. So I just want to congratulate all of the students that I mentioned and those students as well. And then finally, we said farewell to Wendy Sigourney, who is Dr. Stauffer's, our executive assistant at BCTC, as she will be moving on to another position that's closer to home. I did want to mention, as a follow-up to my last report, that I shared some of the enrollment data from back in October that kind of struck me in regards to Wilson's enrollment numbers. So I just wanted to update everybody, I have since shared that data with all of our board and district leadership. And we did start some discussions around 2 main areas that I kind of started in discussion, and we don't have to move that today. But first, how can we maintain a more cost-effective and strategic flow of enrollment from Wilson in our BCTC career pathway? And second, does Wilson already have or provide or have the capacity to provide some of the career and technical goals or aspirations of our students right here at our campus? So we have already started on this discussion. I have met with our curriculum committee since then, and our superintendents to discuss this further, and we hope to engage the rest of the board in the new year around this topic. So I just want to make sure I updated everybody on that. So that's my report for BCTC. Moving on to student services. We met on December 7th. Under our mental health and counseling, the survey that was sent to parents who registered for the mental health night sessions, we sent out a survey to gather feedback on topics for the spring of 2023. So to get some of the themes for the upcoming sessions in 2023, parents and guardians can check the Parent Workshop portal on the website. Under equity and student experiences, we are still reviewing survey data that was collected from the school culture survey. We collected data from parents, community, high school, middle school, elementary school students, as well as staff survey data. So we hope to reconvene the Equity Council in the new year. And I just wanted to note that I attended a virtual countywide meeting for our STAR Club. STAR stands for Stand Together Against Racism. On December 8th, they held a virtual meeting that was actually countywide with Voice Up Berks. And I just wanted to note that Wilson is still the only district in the county that offers the STAR Club as an official club at the high school. Our students engaged in really difficult topics around issues around racism and stereotyping, given some of the issues that our district has been dealing with in the past couple months. And as someone who teaches challenging subject matter, I was really impressed with the ease and the level of discussion that our students, along with many members of the community who were also in attendance virtually, engaged in some of these topics. So kudos to our STAR students. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. BCIU and curriculum committees, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you. The BCIU does not have a December meeting, but I'd like to thank Dr. Hackman, who's always watching, for the pretzels. My children are thrilled. We will meet again in the new year. We did meet in the curriculum committee on December 14th. Mrs. Casper stole our first paragraph. We talked about BCTC career clusters and possible coordination with our high school courses. As Mrs. Casper said, she presented information about the BCTC programming clusters, and we had a discussion about the replication of courses between the Wilson High School and the BCTC. Some examples are the culinary class and definitely the early childhood classes that are offered in the high school, and there are similar courses offered at the BCTC as well. Mrs. Mary Glass gave us an update on our first grade reading instruction cohort. She is an expert teacher. reading recovery trained and reading specialist. And she's been leading the first grade teachers in a professional learning cohort. We talked a little bit about, we're piloting the standards-based progress reports as opposed to the report cards we have now. And Mrs. Misteifer just gave us an update how that's going. We talked a lot about the high school and middle school courses. We had a couple new courses proposed, a middle school internship, a middle school technology course. And we had talked about the high school program of studies. There's 8 new courses. There's going to be 6 suspended courses that had low enrollment. And then there's 10 courses that are going to have name changes. And the name changes are good. The name changes go from like, I don't want to take this, to, hey, this course sounds like it might be interesting. So hopefully they'll drum up some support for those courses. And the last thing we just very briefly touched upon, which will need more discussion, is we had a discussion, no, it won't, no, I think this was quick because we made a decision really easy. We don't ever do anything fast in that meeting. We had a discussion regarding dual credit and the weight of those courses in comparison to AP. AP mandates that their courses have to be weighted to 117, and honors courses have a GPA weight of 1.1. And we wanted to decide, we want to have honor courses that are dual enrolled to have the same weight as AP courses because you're guaranteed college credit for those courses. And that is it for Curriculum Committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your reports. Berks EIT, Mrs. Schlossman.
Good evening. The Berks Tax Collection Committee met on December 15th, and highlights from the meeting included the approval of a 5-year renewal contract for the Executive Director, Becky Iannelli. She has served with Berks EIT for the past 3 years, so we're happy to have her renewed. We reviewed the calendar year-to-date November 22 financial highlights. Earned income tax distributions to school districts and municipalities totaled $143 million, an 11% increase over the same time last year to date, which is great. Local services tax distributions totaled $5.2 million, or 3% better than last year to date, and other Act 511 tax distributions totaled $5.1 million, or 35% better than last year. There is a current excess of $1.2 million over expenses year-to-date November. We approved the calendar year 2023 budget for Berks EIT. It's a $2.3 million budget, which represents 3% increase over the current year budget with a $1.5 million budgeted surplus. We also elected officers for calendar year 2023. The chairperson is Diane Richards from Governor Mifflin School District, Vice Chair Wayne Garris from Reading School District, Secretary is Rosemary LaMastra representing Brandywine Heights Area School District, and I am serving as the treasurer again for next year. And our next quarterly meeting is scheduled for March 30th of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Schlossman. Extracurricular Committee met last Monday at noon. Some of the main topics were the instrument purchase that we discussed, as well as the possibility of donating some of our the instruments that are about to fall apart. What do we do with them? Possibly donate them, maybe give them to an artist to melt down and make something new because that's how bad they are. There are a bunch of ideas thrown around. Also, uniform design for our marching band, which again, the marching band costumes I think are probably close to 20 years old as well. So we saw some design ideas that's going to be coming to the board in the future once they get the design settled, and it takes it's a little bit of a process. We also talked about the upcoming turf replacements in George Mack Stadium, and possibly looking at different materials for that, because since it was put in, the materials have kind of been updated and there are better options. as well as looking at our Southern versus West sports competitions that we've had in the past. We only have a few that remain because a majority of our athletic teams are actually combined. I think we only had a few that are still exist, separate teams at West and Southern. So that was a discussion point, and the possibility of maybe in the future having scrimmages or like a fun night where they come together and compete, but not necessarily as part of their main schedule, having our own school district compete against our own school district. Seems kind of counterproductive. As well as a really great proposal, the unified sports proposal. So unified sports is targeted to our special education population. And it's a pathway to the Special Olympics. And it's for students who, now we do have Special Olympics activities in our own district, but a lot of the activity, a lot of the sporting events, students are paired up with a buddy, and the buddy either assists or kind of, in some cases actually performs the event for them. But in the unified sports, each individual athlete would do all the activity themselves. And it could lead to future, it's like the precursor to Special Olympics. So it's a great opportunity, and we're hoping to see where that takes us in our high school extracurriculars. So that's our extracurricular report. And as always, oh, yes, I was just going to say, as always, our minutes are on the website in case you miss a meeting or update. Dr. Kennedy?
The band uniforms, did they say how long, once you pick a design, it's going to take, are we going to have by next year?
I mean, no. It takes about a year, probably, just for the process, right? Dr. Trickett, do you want to?
Yeah, likely, unfortunately, our students will not have them for next season, but David Bonilla Garcia is working diligently to make sure he's including them, to make sure we get something that represents their fashion interests as well as just the athletic movements that our marching band has to partake. But again, this was brought forth by a community member. If the board remembers, a year ago, and at the time, our band director preferred that we wait until we hire a new band director, rightfully so, to allow him to lead this process with his staff. So they have identified a design, so the process is ongoing, and the next step will be to take it, I guess, to the design-proof stage, actually build a template or a prototype, and from there, ultimately, will give us some quotes that the board can consider as we move forward. Some of the components will be replaceable yearly, like gloves, for example, the undershirts that are, closest to your skin, and then other components will be designed to last for many, many years.
And again, the design is actually linked onto the extracurricular committee minutes on the website, so if you want to get a peek of that, it's neat. And there's it's almost like an Under Armour material underneath that can be changed. So depending on their style or their performance that year, it can be updated and swapped out. So it's neat. I think it's very noble that our previous band director saved it for the incoming director. So that is my committee report. Facilities, Mr. Case?
Excuse me. Thank you. The Facilities Committee did meet last Monday, December 12th. A couple of topics of conversation. The first one was the parking area inside the fence at the transportation area where we park the buses. Where we park, there's we're kind of expanding our parking a bit, and things are getting a little bit muddy, so we're looking at a future small project just to stone an area to expand our parking, so we're not running our buses through mud constantly. Second topic was the turf bids for Mack Stadium. We talked about that, you just mentioned it. The current turf is about 12 years old, and it is starting to break down a bit. It's beyond 2 or 3 years beyond its typical lifespan when you purchase it. So we've actually done a good job keeping it up past its lifespan. And we do, I believe, budget on an annual basis money put aside for keeping that perpetually every 10 years or so. So we have saved quite a bit. So I believe I'm accurate on that. Anyone, please? Okay. So we're looking at some co-stars and different turf options, as you mentioned. Another topic came up, the bathrooms are going to be starting in January in the 500 level of this building. Just kind of a facelift, some flooring and some new stalls, and we're going to be taking care of that in-house. It's below the threshold and no concerns there. Southern baseball and the softball fields came up. We have one softball team between the two schools, and we have a softball field that's pretty much not used at Southern. It's not used at all. The softball team practices and plays at West. So an idea came up to sort of expand the current softball field at Southern to have a joint softball and baseball field, so you can play both on it, and then the baseball team over at Southern gets another field that they can use in the spring. Not much there to do other than kind of expanding the baselines, et cetera. So anyway, just wanted to fill everybody in there. River Rock, or former River Rock, new story. The HVAC, there's 2 units that need to go in, mini splits that our crew is going to be handling, and it's going to be at the expense of New Story. And then the lower house HVAC system, the administration team here, along with Mr. Simcox, they're kind of working with a company that's looking at different grants to try and look at different options for HVAC system in the lower house. Talked about the marching band equipment, and that was it. Oh, and MAC netting, that's going to be scheduled, I believe, for start or completion February 13th, but it's going to be, either way, it's going to be ready for the spring for lacrosse. So, that's it. Next facility committee is February 13th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Finance Committee, Mr. Negrini?
I have no report. I would like, though, to comment on Dr. Kennedy's curriculum report regarding the idea of weighting honors and AP the same. I think it deserves some further discussion on, just to make sure that, you know, we have a deep dive in that in terms of weighting with that, having had a child who's taken many AP classes, having another one that's enrolled right now in AP classes, understanding, you know, how some of our students, some of our obviously national merit scholars have come forth before this board for recognition, understanding some of the nuances between those classes. So I just, again, just my ears perked up when I heard that, and would like to learn more about that before any decisions are made, because certainly there is a difference in those classes. So
I just want to clarify, it's honors dual enrollment. So when they get dual enrollment from RAC or from Alvernia or from Kutztown, because they're getting college credits, and they're guaranteed college credits and taking an actual college class, that it should be the same as an AP class, which is potential college credits. So not regular, like honors.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you for clarifying.
yeah, sorry.
All right, thank you, Mr. Negrini. Mr. Hart, Human Resources?
No report.
Public Relations, Mrs. Troutman?
Good evening. I just have 2 quick items. First, we're pleased to announce that on Friday, December 16th, a graduation ceremony was held for our students who completed the welding internship program at Morgan Corp. These students went through a welding training program throughout the semester and completed their training through written and practical exams. All students who complete the program are provided with offers from the company to begin employment at the age of 18. So we want to congratulate these outstanding students. And then just a quick reminder that winter break is upon us. There will be an early dismissal for students on Thursday, December 22nd, and there is no school for students beginning December 23rd through Monday, January 2nd. Classes resume on January 3rd. Best wishes to everyone for a happy and healthy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Troutman. Education Foundation, Mr. Case?
Oh, still open. No report. Thanks.
Yep. Technology Committee, Mr. McCray?
Yes, we met earlier this afternoon. As approved earlier this evening, we will be selling some outdated equipment as approved to upcycle, just as we have done in the past. We also discussed that we're replacing roughly 300 landline phones to accommodate future software upgrades. As we were able to do in the past with other endeavors, we actually found some cost savings for our taxpayers by looking at refurbished phones to reduce the cost of district, which are a savings of roughly 60 to 80% per phone, which we're excited about. We are also in the process of replacing all food service computers, both back office and point of sale units. Many of those computers are actually 10 years old, so obviously we got some good lifespan out of those as well. And finally, most likely by the time we meet next time, all of our backup to our approved backup provider, Wasabi platform, will have occurred, and that will be a good safeguard for us in case of any technology issues. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Student Outreach, Ms. Danny Radosh.
Good evening. In honor of the holiday season, some of our clubs here at Wilson are striving to give back. So the Spanish Club recently organized a toy drive that went to the Migrant Education Program for children who recently immigrated to the United States. And on Saturday, the National Honor Society students made breakfast for the Opportunity House. And lots of donations were collected for the Stockings for Soldiers event, while students received hot chocolate on their way to class. And tomorrow at 7 is the high school choir concert with the theme of Around the World. Thank you and happy holidays.
Thank you. Ms. Maravich, we do have items on our agenda.
Pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules and Board Policy, the following are rules of public participation. Individuals attending the meeting are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible and respectful manner. Public comment is not question and answer, but is instead an opportunity to offer comment on matters that is or may come before the board. In particular, personnel or student matters may not be commented on, even if the employee, parent, or student is speaking because of confidentiality laws. As it relates to questions, the superintendent may assign an administrator or may himself speak directly to the speaker after the meeting to attempt to answer any questions. The board respectfully asks you to direct your comments to the board as a whole, as it is the board who will need to take into consideration your comments on future votes. Clapping, calling out, or cheering is not permitted. Individuals may not approach the board table. Individuals shall make their comments from the speaker's lectern. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I provide the 1-minute warning. Any persons making threats may be removed from the meeting or may be cited by local police. These expectations are outlined in Board Policy 903, which is on the district's website, embedded in board docs.
Thank you, Mr. Maravich. First, we have Cindy Rusnak, Working Together for Benefit of the Children.
Hi, it's me again. Okay. Any good teacher knows that SMART comes in all types of packages, and a good teacher understands how best to present information to those students. It's also the challenge of a good educator to sift through what comes out of students to find out if, a concept has been retained or if there's something that they need to address. I've been paying attention to these meetings for a couple of years now, and there have been all types of speakers at these meetings over the past 2 years. And being a good listener means sifting through these emotions to get to the details of what is being said. I listen to each speaker and recognize that even in an emotional state, that individual's truth is being put forth to the Wilson School community. I may not always agree with how information is presented or even what is being presented, but it is my belief that everyone has the right to be heard. At the last meeting, there were 2 speakers. They were very emotional. At the end of the meeting, I was wondering what it was that they were so emotional about. And so I researched it and consequently discovered what it was that was making them so upset. An editorial was referenced from a blog called The Activist History Review, and this editorial was written by 3 current board members, one of which, interestingly enough, did not put their name on the editorial. The editorial was just that, an opinion piece by a woman on the board, or the women on the board, seeking to explain their personal journey through the past 2 years of working to put forth a district equity policy. But juxtaposition between that article was pictures with captions of like white conservatives swarming schools, and a comment that people long use schools as a vehicle for maintaining racial inequality to the greatest extent possible, and these so-called CRT protesters are no exception. Although these photos and captions were probably inserted by the blog administrators, it was easy for me to see why these people were getting upset at the meeting. And in fact, in one sentence, the board member author wrote, CRT was used as a tool by whites to mark differences in order to imagine their superiority. I don't know, I just listen to this stuff, and I think of all the hubbub that was created about a board member that gave a racist statement, or supposedly racist statement, when he was reading something that somebody else wrote. And then here's people on the board writing these things, and I just wonder,
1 minute.
why we've gotten to this point. And I'm just asking, that everybody, I looked up the word racism, and it meets the criteria from both sides of the table. And I wonder how that we've gotten to this point. I am sure that each and every board member here serves the district trying to do better for the students that live in this district. And I think it's all time for us to take a breath and do just that. If we want to make the lives of our children and their families better, we need to continually look in the mirror and self-reflect before we open our mouths and call another person a name. Collaborative discussion allows for open dialogue, free exchange of ideas, good decisions consider fresh and varied perspectives, and encourage creativity. Critical thinking then allows the best decision to be made for all, without denigrating those opinions of other people. A little more thought being put into the understanding and the preparation for this will keep emotions on both sides of the table maybe minimized a little bit.
Thank you for your comments. Jeff Janagavo, board discussions and debate.
So, the challenge for everybody here as we would shift into 2023, I would love to see more at length and robust discussions about topics that come before this board, brought up by board members. Here's the basis that I frame my comments to follow through. We continuously hear you vote as a body. May we vote you all in as a body and vote you all out as a body every 4 years. I wonder if Mr. Moravich can rewrite the law as he does policy 903 to that effect. So because you all vote as a body, and I've brought that point up about 903 many times, email and here, and it's ignored, and it's wrong. But because you're a body, and because we co-parent together as a body in this house, in district, since we co-parent together, since November 14th in regards to discipline, in as many weeks we've had as many lockdowns due to medical overdose. I don't know about you, but in my house, if I continuously had medical overdoses, I would take that very seriously. So I look at you as my fellow co-parents to say, how are you leading this house as regards to those kinds of issues? I would ask how you're leading this house as regards to having to have 9th through 12th graders be herded in specific zones for dismissal. What are we doing in our house where we can't have 14 to 18-year-olds conduct themselves in a proper manner to dismiss themselves? As a co-parent with you, I wonder what we're doing together. We've had discussion briefly, and it really got kind of shouted down. And the meeting after it happened, I planned to speak, but I stepped back to let others speak first because I felt it appropriate. But in regards to IEPs, and I'm not against them at all, but our own enrollment numbers and our enrollment numbers of IEPs are in direct contradiction to the Pareto principle. Our numbers fly in the face of it. And if we were to study that principle, we would say that about 1,200 of our students should be tested from our population. Not necessarily that all 1,200 would have an IEP. This is not against those students. It is to say, and I found agreement with an attorney who serves our community for parents with IEPs, it is to say that to give coverage by not talking about something only allows abuse of the system through not having public debate at the highest level for the students that most need those funds and most need those supports, and that's wrong. And finally, if I had a co-parent that provided coverage for a teacher who admitted in the DA announcement to some level of admittance of crimes against the children in that manner, I would step down from my selfless volunteer role and no longer provide coverage for that teacher in our community. That's what I would do as a co-parent with you.
Thank you for your comments. Michaela Unjurian, girls basketball coach.
Hi, my name is Michaela Ungurian, and I'm a sophomore here at Wilson High School. I'm speaking today regarding my own personal encounters with Coach Gallo. When I first tried out, I thought it might just take Gallo a little bit to get used to me, but as the season went along, I quickly learned I wasn't the only victim of his toxic coaching culture. While I understand being a relatively new coach comes with its challenges and difficulties, no one in your development should you ever belittle and send your athletes home crying. I've had numerous encounters with Gallo portraying himself as some kind of bully and consistently degrading me as an individual. One in particular was at tryouts. I had forgotten to put my phone away at the start of practice, but I had not gone on it at all during the practice itself. Gallo saw two phones on the ground, one of which was mine and one of which was another teammate's, and he got very aggressive very quickly. He had asked us, whoever's phone it was, to come out and grab and put it away, but I was so scared of what was going to happen, I didn't move, and he asked us again whose it was, and a girl on my team went and took my phone and her phone into the locker room, and then came back and practice continued. Fast forward a month, practice ended, and I walked outside to my mom's car before we could ever leave, and a teammate had told me that Gallo wanted to speak to me inside. So I walked back inside, and Gallo was standing in the hall while the boys' basketball team was practicing nearby. He didn't take me into an office or the locker room or a private location. Instead, he chose to belittle me in front of the boys' team. He told me he found out it was my phone from tryouts, and he shouted at me, telling me I had bad character, a bad attitude, and I didn't have the right mentality for his team. He had only known me for about a month. He had no idea who I was outside of basketball. His words struck me hard because your coach is supposed to be someone you look up to and someone you admire. And hearing those words come from him made me question myself as a human being. I remember walking out of that gym crying in front of the boys' team because they had heard and seen everything, and I was in complete shock about how he chose to go about doing it and how he felt no remorse for what he just did to me. I felt like a punching bag and experienced severe anxiety every time he spoke to me after this event. This toxic culture of belittlement caused the whole team to always feel like we couldn't speak up for ourselves because our playing time would be affected or we'd be severely yelled at. I have many examples of his tyrannical style of coaching. However, due to time constraints, I'll end with this. So we had our end of the season meetings, and I really hoped it would be just based off my performance and have him give me some advice on what I could do better. But to my surprise, the entire meeting had absolutely nothing to do with my athletic ability. Instead, the entire meeting was filled with him telling me I had a bad attitude, a bad character, and he basically told me not even to come out for the team next year. The quote that stuck with me the most ever since last year's meeting was when he said, "It would take a miracle for you to even make my team next year." So I was asked why I waited to take action on all of this, and honestly, I was just going to forget basketball and focus on soccer because I couldn't take the belittling any longer. But then this year, so many of my old teammates reached out to me telling me everything he had been doing to them this current season and how bad it's truly gotten. So I put together a petition that asked for the resignation and termination of Coach Gallo based on his toxic coaching culture and received 25 signatures. Many players on the current and past basketball team had intended on signing this petition, but I had to remove their names because Gallo made several threats towards them if any of them got involved or signed it. This man has not only taken their freedom of speech away, he's taken away their confidence in their play, he's taken away my love for the sport, and he's taken a huge toll on me on how I saw myself as a person, because I believed the things that he told me for the longest time. I believed someone that only knew me for the 2 hours of practice he had seen me for, and I believed the lies and the disrespect Coach Gallo had given me. So I'm speaking here today on behalf of the girls that are too scared to come forward and speak on this, the girls that are silenced by the fear of Gallo, and the girls that have quit basketball just like I have this year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Chastity Santiago, Board Impact on Community.
Okay. Sorry, just lady who spoke before made me cry. For those of you who do not know me, I grew up in this community as part of the graduating class of 1996. Growing up, I was chubby, smart, and I've always been Hispanic. And I have never, ever felt so out of place in a community than I do now. The pride I once felt as a Wilson graduate has been shattered by board members ignoring their own offensive comments, which have cultivated a community that speaks very loudly for certain groups that they victimize and have zero tolerance for anyone who doesn't agree with them. It breaks my heart, and I broke down and cried to think that I brought my son back to a community that no longer exists. Your reactions of pity and sympathy only minimize the feelings of others by deciding how they should feel based on your own experiences. Help me understand why you pity our Black community members. No statements were issued after the meeting about those transgender comments you were mad about. Is it because you find them more capable of handling themselves than our Black community members? I really need to understand. And it just doesn't make sense. You know, 80% of this world lives off of less than $10 a day. That's a real problem. I'm a 2-time cancer survivor who has 27 surgeries. To me, that's a problem. I don't put it on anybody else, but I have had enough of people who read a couple books and accuse every other white person of racism. I have had enough of people with master's degrees and doctorates lecturing people on oppression. I've had enough of thinking we're too dumb to understand policies that use discrimination disguised as equity. Enough of arguing over who is the most offensive and using their privilege to dictate what is offensive. It's enough. I have been called racist, a white supremacist, just for talking of bringing my piece and pointing out the hypocrisy of people who are accusing others of racism. I don't want to hear about oppressing. We're not oppressed. We live in Wilson School District, okay? I've never experienced what I've experienced from this community, and you should all be ashamed because the legacy is gone. I don't understand how anybody can be proud. You demonize us, and you think we're less than you, and we don't need your pity or sympathy. And every other person of color should be scared of what's happening to me because it could be them next.
Thank you for your comments. That's the end of public participation on non-agenda items. Is there any other business from the board? Mr. Schneider?
Yeah, my original statements were just to wish the students, the staff, and the community a joyous holiday season. But I have to take pause because I take great umbrage at accusations thrown at myself, and I will only speak for myself about what kind of people we are to allow for the behaviors of some adults toward children. None of those accusations occurring in this district, that those statements would be made about us, it is just disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Any other business from the board? Mrs. Casper?
Yes, thank you, President Cocker. I don't know if I can post that. Okay, thank you. So I wanted to follow in Dr. Kennedy's lead to highlight something positive in our community, in our Wilson community. And as some of you may already know, I have been teaching adult English through the Berks Literacy Council since around 2017. When a group of Penn State Berks colleagues and I were certified through the council to teach via the National English Forward curriculum. My relationship actually with the Literacy Council stems much further back, since I have many fond memories of my mother taking English classes when I was a student at Muhlenberg. So the story itself has come full circle as I find myself doing the same thing here for the Wilson community. This partnership, as I understand it, was initiated by Dr. Stephen Burnham at Southern Middle School when he was here in the district. And I was originally recruited to begin teaching the classes back in 2019 to our non-English speaking Wilson parents and community residents. Although we started off in 2019 as somewhat successful, it was definitely a work in progress. We all know what happened later on that school year with the pandemic shutdown. So it was a struggle for those 2+ years to try to get the program back up and running. We did a lot of virtual pivoting and tried to recruit students for the program through in the community. And throughout that time, I was able to forge relationships with our district EL team, who helped to recruit some of our students from our EL parents, as well as some of our high school students who came in and helped to volunteer in my classes with our students. So it wasn't all that much of a struggle. But this year, I really think was the year. This year, I think the parents and the adults that I worked with since September really are representative of what I think Dr. Burnham really wanted to do with this partnership with the Literacy Council. All of the parents, or all of my students represented either a parent or a relative of a student in the district this fall. I had a couple grandparents, I had an uncle, and everybody else was a parent of a student here, most of which are English learners within our own district. And so I would like to thank, first of all, Dr. Burnham, who's no longer with us, and of course the Literacy Council, Mr. Bryce, and his wonderful staff, because I do think we were finally successful this year in bringing the partnership to fruition. This photo here represents actually the end of this fall semester, just a week ago, and not all of the students are present in the photo since it was a testing night. But all of my students, as I mentioned, are parents or relatives of students in the Wilson School District, most of whom are English learners in the Wilson School District. So as someone who teaches pre-service teachers to teach English learners, I know that some of the most successful models for teaching English learners involve the direct integration of the family and of the home languages. So I really feel that this partnership helps to bring all of that together. And Wilson is actually the first school district in the county to pursue such a partnership with the Literacy Council, given that our English learner population here in the district is one of our fastest growing populations. This year, the Literacy Council extended this type of partnership with Governor Mifflin, and they had an enormous turnout of more than 60 parents show up for the registration night. The Literacy Council is scrambling to try to hire more instructors and promote that position. They were able to hire 2 new instructors as a result. And by the way, I mentioned that I was certified as in the English Forward curriculum at Penn State. Anyone can be certified to teach in the English Forward curriculum, so you don't have to have a background in the teaching of adult English. So I just wanted to plug, there's a flyer here as well for my own registration. I'll be running my own registration tomorrow night at Southern Middle School in the library for any new adult, anyone who's interested and wants to spruce up their English. So if you know of any families or any adults in our district, they can come. The classes are free. The registration will begin at 6 p.m. in the library at Southern Middle School. And then finally, I want to thank our administration and the folks at Southern for their amazing support and hospitality in being able to use and teach in their space. Mrs. Line for her amazing classroom. Your classroom is a treasure. And thank you for sharing it with me and the students. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, Mrs. Casper. Sounds like a great program. Any other business from the board? Dr. Kennedy?
I just have 2 really quick things. I just attended my last elementary daytime chorus concert, and just a quick history, it used to just be 6th grade chorus only. And it's just been the last few years that they've done the kindergarten and first concert, and then the second and the third concert. And I'd like to thank our elementary music teachers for that, because I know that puts a whole lot more on their plate. And, you know, the kids are adorable, and doesn't take too much time. But I had to laugh when Dr. Trickett shared that there was standing room only when he and Dr. Stout went over to Spring Ridge. There may have been comments in the parking lot having to park at Southern about, is this a Taylor Swift concert or why? It was really, really crowded and well-attended at Green Valley as well. The other thing is a combination of 2 of the the agenda items, the student possibility of being a bus aide, and then our stop finder, or not stop finder, the other one. I did it again. The bus patrol. You did it the last time. I have two people to thank. I always want to thank the bus drivers and the bus aides. They're amazing. They come to my house at 6:35 in the morning, and they're happy to see my kid, and my kid's happy to see them. And if you are a high school student, being a bus aide might be the most fun you have at 6:30 in the morning. So I highly recommend that, especially if it's someone who's interested in teaching or getting into the field of special education. But I also apparently like to thank the drivers of Gall Road. I live on Gall Road. Gall Road is a thoroughfare for all things West and Green Valley. We get, 3,000 times more traffic we did than when I moved there, not 18 years ago. I've never, in all the years, ever, knock on wood, had anyone pass, and we are slow. I have a long driveway, and it takes us a good while, sometimes we have to wait. Patrick's bus came at 3:25, usually it comes at 3:10. But thank you to everyone that waits for all of our kids, because it is so very, very important, and I know we're always running late, and I cut my time by the second, I know I have to beat bus 10 at a certain point to get somewhere on time. But thank you especially to everybody driving up and down Gall Road who waits for us every single morning. I know there's another little guy a little further down Gall Road who has a van, and sometimes we wait for him too, and I get it, and I appreciate it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Other business?
I
Mr. Case?
just want to add, I want to thank Mr. Williams and the administration team for acting so fast on this. This came up just a couple or maybe 3 months ago, and actually like 2 months ago, and jumped to action extremely quick and moved fast, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Case. Any other business from the board? Okay. I just wanted to say, for our community, for our students, for our families, I hope everyone has a happy holiday and a very healthy new year, and we will see you January 17th for our next meeting. So looking for a motion to adjourn.
Schneider.
Mr. Schneider, thank you. Meeting is adjourned.